What in the hell is going on with America? People were genuinely shocked that a geriatric, possibly senile convicted felon, people literally mentioned the 34 counts, is in a near-dead heat with Vice President Kamala Harris, particularly as Donald Trump, whose own former Joint Chiefs of Staff Chair Mark Milley called fascist to the core, closes his campaign with what can only be described as a mix of incoherent rambling and straight-up Nazism.
One of the papers said on another country that we are an occupied country, and you know what? They're not that wrong. These are among the worst criminals anywhere in the world, and they come from all over. A huge number is coming out of jails in the Congo. We will defend our civilization. We will not be conquered. We will not be occupied. We will not be invaded. I will rescue California and every town across America that's been invaded and conquered. And we will put these vicious and bloodthirsty criminals in jail or kick them the hell out of the country.
There's also the equally Hitlerian rhetoric that he used to describe American citizens and what might happen on Election Day.
I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military, because they can't let that happen.
On the other hand, Vice President Kamala Harris responds the way a normal campaign would, accurately warning voters of the dangers of Trump.
We can already see the harm he's up to as a candidate. Most recently, spreading disinformation in the wake of natural disasters. Blocking real solutions that would stop drug cartels from crossing the border when he tried to kill and did that border security deal. Because you see, Donald Trump cares more about scaring people, creating fear, running on a problem instead of what real leaders do, which is to participate in fixing problems.
But if it makes no sense to you that a man who vows to march non-white immigrants into U.S. concentration camps at gunpoint and then mass deport them, while calling these immigrants vermin, diseased criminals, murderers, cat eaters, and cannibals, while also vowing to turn American police into death squads and telling his voters that they don't have to vote anymore after he wins, if you are gobsmacked that that guy, who during a deadly pandemic sent COVID tests badly needed by Americans to Vladimir Putin instead, is tied with the sitting vice president who's supported by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the Cheneys, well, welcome to the rest of the rational world, who think not just Donald Trump, but maybe America itself has gone mad. It's not just Trump and the sacking of the Capitol, which, trust me, people outside this country have not forgotten. It's the Republicans, federal and state, who are already vowing to refuse to certify the November election unless Trump wins. Add to that the threat that a Republican-controlled Senate would confirm 40-year-old right-wing replacements for Justices Alito and Thomas, meaning a far-right Supreme Court for the rest of our children's lives, plus a national abortion ban and Project 2025. And you have the recipe for a fascist America, not just in 2025, but in 2055. Things are so bad. The House is refusing to come back into session to provide new additional hurricane aid, while at the same time in North Carolina, an armed man was arrested for making threats against FEMA workers, while federal aid workers had to pause working and move because of reports of armed militias, fueled by Trump and other Republicans' wild hurricane disinformation threatening them. At this point, you can't call what Trump is running a campaign. As friend of the show David Corn points out in Mother Jones, what Trump and J.D. Vance and House and Senate Republicans are running is a massive disinformation campaign aimed at warping Americans' reality. And they're doing it with violent, terrifying, and sometimes bizarre conspiracy theories that set the table for maybe armed resistance to a Kamala Harris win or mass acceptance of American fascism. Trump and Republicans, backed by far right-wing billionaires like Elon Musk, and right-wing media and anti-woman manosphere podcasts are creating social media or gaming social media apps like X Twitter in Trump's favor and pumping disinformation into the brains of Trump supporters. Not quite foreign interference, but not exactly different from what Vladimir Putin would do. And in many ways, the disinformation campaign is working. Base Republicans today believe everything from Democrats secretly manipulating the weather from a secret base in Alaska to Trump being incapable of losing this election. He's winning in a landslide. And some Democrats are starting to believe the disinformation, too. Have you noticed how sharply the polls have shifted in Trump's favor over the last couple weeks? With these claims that Trump is surging with black and Latino voters and leading in every single swing state, according to secret internal polls, despite all the Hitler talk. Yes, this race will be far too close. Because unfortunately, we do have a fascist groundswell in parts of this country, mainly among white men, let's be clear, but in small pockets among black and brown men, too. This happens to be a global phenomenon as women become more economically independent and seek positions of power. But friend of the show, Simon Rosenberg, points out that just like in 2020 and 2022, dozens of right-wing polls have been dumped into the marketplace in the last few weeks, 12 in Pennsylvania alone. Those polls then swing the polling averages to the right, making Trump look strong and Kamala Harris look stalled. Now, there are lots of explanations for why you'd want to game the polls. Entrepreneurial Republican pollsters can certainly gain favor with Trump, who's apparently fuming about Vice President Harris's billion-dollar fundraising and positive press. And then there's the more sinister explanation that if Trump, Republican pollsters, and even jittery Democrats convince enough people that his victory is inevitable, how much easier would it be to claim that the election was stolen if he loses? And how much easier would it be to get his base to rise up and maybe even get violent the way they did when he lost the last time? How much easier would it be to get the Republican House Speaker or John Roberts and the right-wing Supreme Court conservatives to throw the election to Trump? These are the things we need to consider, because Donald Trump is not running a normal election. He's talking America into damn near a civil war to terrify voters into supporting him. And if that doesn't work, he's laying the groundwork for insurrection 2.0. I'm joined now by Ruth Ben-Ghiat, history professor at New York University, who writes about fascism and authoritarianism, and Stuart Stevens, chief strategist for Mitt Romney's 2012 presidential campaign and senior advisor for the Lincoln Project. Thank you both for being here. Ruth, I want to start with you. Talk me down if I have overstated the case. And I just want to note for you, this is the case not just that I'm making, but that is being made to me by people outside the United States who are watching what's happening in the U.S. Have I overstated it?
No, you haven't. And I would actually go further than David Corn. It is Trump is not running a normal campaign. It's not just a disinformation campaign, although it is that. He's been running a radicalization campaign. I've been saying that ever since he showed up at Waco, Texas, to start his campaign at a white supremacist pilgrimage site, site of cult violence. That was a sign. Then he's visiting gun shops to look at, guns with his name on them. And so it's not hard to see that he's been running this kind of, he's been conditioning Americans, and he's really been doing this since 2015 using his rallies, but particularly escalated now. He's conditioning Americans to see violence in a different light, which is what fascists do, which is what dictators do, as something that is sometimes necessary and even patriotic, which is why he calls the thugs who assaulted Capitol Police on January 6th as patriots. So all of this is coming, is being escalated now because he needs to get people into a state of existential fear. And that's why he's talking about the enemy within, because the heartland has to be threatened, and he's dehumanizing them and sowing disgust and contempt for non-white people and immigrants. And all of this has to be ratcheted up so that he can get people into the state to perhaps follow him into violence if he loses.
Right. I mean, the thing about it is, Stuart, I've been around a long time, and I used to do campaigns when I wasn't in the media side. Nothing like this is a campaign, because normally campaigns are about addition. It's about trying to get more people into your camp to vote for you. He's not doing that. He's essentially simply telling, let me just give you Kamala Harris's version of it. Here she is asking the question of what Trump is doing. Here's Vice President Harris.
He refuses to release his medical records. He is unwilling to do a 60 Minutes interview. He is unwilling to meet for a second debate. And here's the thing. It makes you wonder. Why does his staff want him to hide away? One must question, are they afraid that people will see that he is too weak and unstable to lead America? Is that what's going on?
Like, I mean, yeah, right. The answer would be yes. But I mean, then this is the vice president who's going to go on Fox. She's going to be on with Bret Baier. But the reality is, it's not just that he's too weak and unstable, Stuart. It's that, the more you see him in real life, the more people will see how unstable he is. But he also isn't trying to win over more people. The reason you do more stuff is that you want to win over more people. He just wants to get the people he's got to despise and be disgusted and enraged at non-white immigrants, so that they will think, well, that's the reason my life is bad, and if he loses, it's their fault.
Yeah, and, really disturbing thing is to think that today was the best Donald Trump you're going to see. Tomorrow, it will be worse. The next day, it will be worse. He's on a decline here, and he's in this sort of loop where he realizes he's losing, so he lashes out more in anger. And really, I think that they have almost given up on this race, and it's more about trying to change how we count votes to be able to control that with these threats of violence. And I think it's something that we really need to take seriously. I mean, can we really tell ourselves that they're not going to try to go into polling places in Arizona and disrupt them or burn one to the ground, and just so you can say they can't certify the election? And, one of the great advantages that Donald Trump has always had is the difficulty of imagining Donald Trump. You couldn't imagine him being the Republican nominee. You couldn't imagine him beating Clinton. You couldn't imagine him not refusing to leave office after he lost by 7 million votes. And I think that we have to embrace this and look at, really, this is a guy who's calling for military tribunals. This is very serious stuff. And the great shame is not on Donald Trump, it's on the Republican Party for accepting this. And if the Republican Party stood up to Donald Trump and said, no, we're not going to have military tribunals, no, he wouldn't be able to get away with this kind of alacrity that he does now. But there is a great conspiracy of silence and cowardice in the Republican Party.
And on top of that, Ruth, you're seeing Donald Trump wrap himself in this sort of persecution complex, right? He's got armed men showing up to Mar-a-Lago and to where he was going to be in California at Coachella, but they're Republicans. And yet and that you have fellow Republicans attempting to blame Democrats and the left for being out to kill Donald Trump, when it's literally just people from his own side who keep showing up with guns near him. But he's creating this sort of persecution, sort of veneration complex, like he's some sort of Christ-like figure. And then you take that and you add to it what Stuart is saying, which is that essentially they're saying that, and the Republican Party is saying the only outcome we will accept and certify is Trump winning. And if he doesn't win, you, the Trump voter, ought to take that as a signal that these people we've described as vermin are making war against Trump, are trying to hurt Trump, and are trying to hurt you. This is a recipe for a kind of sort of civil war over this election when it doesn't look like he's winning it.
Yeah, and every single thing you've mentioned is straight out of the autocratic playbook. The GOP actually knows it can't win the popular vote. It's taking these extreme positions on reproduction rights and other things. And so they've become an autocratic entity that is dependent on lying, on corruption, and the threatened reality of violence. And then you have Trump, who is doing the classic thing, started by Mussolini onward, that you are the savior of the nation, but you're also the victim. And this victimhood complex is really important because it makes his most deluded / devoted followers feel protective of him, even though he's always telling them that he doesn't care about them, like not having buses for them. Or in Iowa at the caucus, he said, even if you vote and you die, it'll be worth it. So this is like an abuser mentality, but he has to be the victim as well as the savior. And that's something that all strong men do successfully. But all of this is just straight out of authoritarianism, including the tragic outcome of that they despise their own people and they consider them, anybody who does not have total loyalty becomes an enemy of the people, an enemy of the state. And so Americans should know that it's not going to be just immigrants targeted. It's, liberals, leftists, political opponents, LGBTQ people. And that's how it always is with authoritarians. They may start by rhetorically emphasizing one group, but they always go after many groups.
And by the way, their victims also include their own people. If you go back through Donald Trump's history, disproportionately right-wing Republicans died from COVID because he would not promote the vaccines his own government helped to fund. At January 6th, it was a Trump supporter who tried to jump through the glass and ended up being shot and killed. It was Trump supporters who were getting trampled. It's pro-Trump police officers who were getting beaten and harmed. It was two people at a Trump rally, his own people, who were the ones who were shot and killed in Butler, Pennsylvania. His own people wind up suffering, and he doesn't seem to care. The people who died of COVID, you don't hear him talking about them under his watch. His own people wind up suffering. So if you're one of those people that thinks that he won't deport you and your family, you don't know Donald Trump. Talk to the people who understand who he is. You will be on the list and on the menu.
You've heard Donald Trump say he'll arrest and deport millions.
On day one, I will terminate every open border policy of the Biden administration, and we will begin the largest domestic deportation operation in American history.
But have you heard who else he wants to arrest? It might be you if you've disagreed with the Supreme Court.
These people should be put in jail the way they talk about our judges and our justices.
The former president has ramped up his threats to jail political opponents if he wins the election.
I say, go down and indict them, they'd be out of the election.
Trump threatens anyone who holds him accountable with arrest and imprisonment. When a nut writes, Elizabeth Cheney is guilty of treason and calls for televised military tribunals, Trump sends it out to millions of his followers. How many times did he rant?
They should lock her up. Lock him up. Yeah, lock him up.
Donald Trump is a convicted felon awaiting trial for other felonies. He's an angry and desperate man who cares nothing about the Constitution or rule of law. It's not about Republican or Democrat. It's about protecting our country, our heritage, our future, America, or Trump.
Are you a conservative voter thinking about who to vote for? Consider this. President Bush is not voting for Donald Trump. Vice President Mike Pence is not voting for Donald Trump. Mitt Romney is not voting for Donald Trump. Liz Cheney is not voting for Donald Trump. Vice President Dick Cheney is not voting for Donald Trump. President Bush's Attorney General Alberto Gonzales is not voting for Donald Trump. Trump's own Chief of Staff, General John Kelly, is not voting for Donald Trump. It's a long list of conservatives who know Donald Trump is unfit to be president. It's not about right or left, Democrat or Republican. This is a different election. Donald Trump is not a conservative. Senator Lindsey Graham predicted that if Donald Trump won, it would destroy conservatism. He was right. Country over party. Join the leaders you respect. Take a stand. America or Trump.
They want you to forget about January 6th. They want you to forget that Donald Trump lost the election and knew it on election night.
This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. Frankly, we did win. He beat us by a whisker.
They want you to forget any illegal conspiracy against the United States of America and every American voter. They want you to forget when they lost in court, that they used violence at the Capitol. But we haven't forgotten, and we won't. Trump and his associates are amping it up again, planting the seeds that will lead to the same violence and chaos.
It's hard to say what you're going to do and what you're not.
It's not over on election day, it's over on inauguration day.
My answer is always conditional.
The only way they're going to win, in my opinion, is if they cheat. Prosecute people that cheat. They cheat. Do you understand that, you crooked people?
Senator, will you accept the election result?
Hillary Clinton said he will use constitutional processes to challenge issues.
Assaults on police officers. Threats to poll workers.
200,000 volunteers to be poll watchers.
Attacks on our institutions. In 2021, they failed to overturn the election. January 6th was a trial run. They've learned lessons, put new allies in vital positions.
It's going to take a civil war to save the country.
If Kamala wins, Trump will make sure it's painful for America, but not nearly as painful if he won. There's a fight ahead, either way, and the first and most important one will be at the ballot box. Don't get comfortable. Don't take down your guard, because now, more than ever, it's America or Trump.
Hey, Donald.
Governor Chris Sununu called Trump crazy, but he's...
All your friends, all the people that have worked with you.
He's a very, very flawed man.
They all think you're nuts.
The man cannot tell the truth, but he combines it with being a narcissist.
He's a populist, authoritarian narcissist.
Donald Trump is not fit to be president of the United States.
Our country can't be a therapy session for a troubled man like that.
Governor Sununu called Trump crazy and said if he was in a mental institution, he wouldn't get out.
Turn over the nuclear codes of the United States to an erratic individual.
Serious character issues.
He constantly engages in reckless conduct.
Goes and he starts to say these wacky things.
But he's not fit to be president of the United States.
A consummate narcissist.
A narcissist at a level I don't think this country's ever
Donald
seen.
Trump's literally insane. And I think people are scared of him, and they should be scared of him.
Wholly unfit to be president of the United States in every way you can think of.
Learn more at psychopac.org. Anti-Psychopath PAC Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising.
President Xi and myself, somebody said, what kind of a man is he? He's a fierce person. He is. He's a very smart guy. I hate to say brilliant because every time I call him brilliant, the press says, he said the president, well, he is a brilliant guy. Got 1.4 billion people. He rules it with an iron fist. And the press gets upset when I say he's a smart man. I would think he's a smart man, but actually, he's somebody that we can't. The worst people are the enemies from within.
They're poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done.
Heart rate at 130. Blood pressure dropping. We're at 80/50. Finger clamps. We're at 80/50.
It didn't need to end this way, Dad. You were so excited to be a grandfather. When you walked me down the aisle, those were happy tears. College, high school, sports. I could always count on you. You were my protector, my hero. You always made me feel safe, loved, like I was the most important person in the world. But it turned out he was more important.
The fact that I was able to terminate Roe v. Wade after 50 years of trying.
Each one of those abortion bans includes strict legal rules that are designed to be impossible to comply with. How does a mother who is dying in a hospital bed get to a courthouse to prove to a judge that she's dying?
You will no longer be thinking about abortion.
You knew what he'd do. You knew his politics would end my freedom, my rights. My life. chose hate over me.
In 1979, I had gotten on an airplane. The stewardess said to me, "Would you like to come up to first class?" In the window seat was a gentleman, said that his name was Donald Trump. The airplane took off, and all of a sudden, Donald Trump started groping me. He was trying to kiss me, and I'm trying to push him away. He was basically overpowering me. When he started putting his hand up my skirt, I got out of the seat, grabbed my purse, and went back to my original seat. And I certainly was shook up by the whole thing. 2 years later, at this fundraiser, up comes Trump and his wife. And he looked at me and he said, "I remember you. You're that cunt from the airplane." Donald Trump views women as for his entertainment. He is a serial predator. He has said it at point blank, and he's done it, and he will continue to do it.
Anti-Psychopath PAC Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising.
My name is Natasha Stoynoff. In 2005, I went to interview Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. At one point, Melania went upstairs to change her clothes for the next photo shoot. And Trump said to me, "I want to show you this beautiful painting, this beautiful room." He leads me to this room, pushes me against the wall, and starts kissing me forcefully. I tried to push him. He kept coming back at me. I was in shock and smothered, and he had his hands here against my shoulders. I felt sick inside. I felt horrified, and thank goodness the butler charges into the room. Like many women, I blamed myself. So Trump turned to me and said, "You know we're going to have an affair, don't you?" And Melania was approaching. I was horrified. When the Access Hollywood tape came out, and also stories of many other women, including E. Jean Carroll, I realized I was not to blame, that he was just a predator of women. What could have happened if the butler had not come into the room? Donald Trump is an adjudicated sexual assaulter. We cannot elect this man as president.
Anti-Psychopath PAC Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising.
I did try and fuck her. She was married. I moved on her like a bitch, but I couldn't get there, and she was married. Then all of a sudden I see her, she's now got the big phony tits and everything. She's totally changed her look. You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. Just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the pussy. You can do anything.
You called what you said locker room banter. You described kissing women without consent, grabbing their genitals. That is sexual assault. You bragged that you have sexually assaulted women.
It's locker room talk, and it's one of those things.
Just for the record, though, are you saying that what you said on that bus 11 years ago, that you did not actually kiss women without consent or grope women without consent?
I have great respect for women. Nobody has more respect for women than I do.
So for the record, you're saying you never did that?
I said things that, frankly, you hear these things.
And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Grab them by the pussy. You can do anything. That's what you said, correct?
Well, historically, that's true with stars.
It's true with stars that they can grab women by the pussy?
Well, that's what it's. If you look over the last million years, I guess that's been largely true. Not always, but largely true. Unfortunately or fortunately.
And you consider yourself to be a star?
I think you can say that, yeah.
Hurricane Helene, the monster storm that tore through Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, and Tennessee. The damage, catastrophic. So many lives lost, and recovery will take years. Not the first one this big, and it won't be the last. But it could be the last time the federal government can help the victims of this kind of disaster. Donald Trump's Project 2025 has a plan for the states that hurricanes and disasters hit hardest. Cancel the National Weather Service so we won't even know what's coming. Close the National Hurricane Center, which tracks these monsters and gives us a little time to prepare. Tear FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, apart. Get rid of federal flood insurance If your home is destroyed, you're not covered. The monster storms won't stop coming. But with Donald Trump's Project 2025, we'll never be ready for one again.
What are you so afraid of? New people coming to this country? Immigration has been the backbone of American growth for over 2 centuries. Coming here for a better life is in the DNA of the American dream.
America is a proposition, not a race, an idea, not a bloodline.
But Donald Trump, the grandson of immigrants himself, wants you to be afraid.
Afraid of people who come here to work hard. Afraid of people who might not look like you, but desperately want to call themselves American.
These are people who aren't looking for a handout. They aren't trying to be the burden Trump claims they are.
They want to contribute, to call this place home, and to carve out their piece of the American dream.
But despite everything this country did for his family after they came here, Trump wants to pull the ladder up behind him, and his billionaire pals are trying to help him do it.
Don't be a pawn in their schemes.
America works best when we are a beacon to the world.
If Trump is president, he'll turn that beacon off. And that's un-American.
You commit to prioritizing legislation to make childcare affordable. Specific piece of legislation will you advance?
Well, I would do that, and we're sitting down. You know, I was somebody, we had Senator Marco Rubio, and my daughter Ivanka was so impactful on that issue. It's a very important issue. But I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, that, because look, child care is child care. There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. But when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about by taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly. And it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country. Those numbers are so much bigger than any numbers that we're talking about, including child care, that it's going to take care. We're going to have, I look forward to having no deficits within a fairly short period of time, coupled with the reductions that I told you about on waste and fraud and all of the other things that are going on in our country. Because I have to stay with child care. I want to stay with child care, but those numbers are small relative to the kind of economic numbers that I'm talking about, including growth, but growth also headed up by what the plan is that I just told you about. We're going to be taking in trillions of dollars, and as much as child care is talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive compared to the kind of numbers we'll be taking in. We're going to make this into an incredible country that can afford to take care of its people, and then we'll worry about the rest of the world. Let's help other people. But we're going to take care of our country first. This is about America first. It's about make America great again. We have to do it because right now we're a failing nation. So we'll take care of it. Thank you. Very good question. Thank you.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
I want anybody running for president to take an aptitude test, to take a cognitive test. I think it's a great idea.
We agree, because you're insane.
She was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn, and she became a black person.
What does it mean to turn black?
She failed her law exam. She didn't pass her law exams.
Mr. President, are you saying she wouldn't pass? Just to be clear,
I'm just giving you the facts.
He did crap the bed today. The only question is whether he's going to roll around in it or get up and change his sheets.
Chuck Schumer has become a Palestinian. He's become a proud member of Hamas.
He did crap the bed today.
They couldn't get their equipment working or something. They have bad equipment. And the mics are really in lousy shape that happen to be taking black jobs. You had the best.
What exactly is a black job, sir?
A black job is anybody that has a job.
He did crap the bed today.
I don't think I've ever been asked the question in such a horrible manner. When you continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
Why did you choose J.D. Vance?
I chose him because he's a very strong believer in work.
He did crap the bed today.
And then you were half an hour late, just so we understand, especially when you're 35 minutes late. You're the one that held me up at 35 minutes.
He did crap the bed today.
When Time Magazine asked you if you would consider pardoning all the rioters, you said, yes, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely, I would. I would pardon them.
Convicted.
And by the way, the Supreme Court just well...
He did crap the bed today. Learn more at psychopac.org. Anti-Psychopath PAC Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Vice President Harris was clearly well prepared, practiced on the offensive much of the night. Former President Trump did take a lot of the bait that she threw out.
She did so well, and Trump did so poorly that they want to do that all over again.
I can't get behind somebody who maybe I agree with certain policies on, but their character is atrocious and lacks complete leadership.
She conveyed the calm. She conveyed a preparation.
Vice President Harris clearly won the debate in terms of her delivery, her polish, and her preparation.
The moment of the debate, if there was one, I think, was when she baited him on the rallies.
People saw, oh, actually, she's an intelligent, capable person who has a point of view on issues, and she demonstrated that time and again.
She was composed, she was prepared, she kept her cool, she saw advantages, she took them.
Donald Trump looked old tonight.
Yeah. This is the difference between someone who's well prepared and someone who's unprepared. Whoever did debate prep for Donald Trump should be fired.
Truly a difficult night.
The story of being black in America is filled with never-ending chapters of challenge. Driving while black, banking while black, parenting while black. But what about voting while black? They always tell you this election will be different, and it rarely is. So many promises made. Promises of economic justice and social equity that never quite make it to your pocket or your porch. But this election, there really is only one choice. This time, she is the choice. Now I know, you're thinking I've never voted for a woman and I'm not gonna start now. Ask yourself, why not? And maybe you'll find it's not about her, it's about you. What you want for your family, for your future. Because if you vote for what you want, the choice becomes clear. It's Kamala. Listen to your gut. Your heart is telling you that Kamala Harris is the right person for the job. It's time for courage, for boldness. It's time to come together for change. It's time to be a man. Vote for a woman.